Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is JGOD. In today's video we're going to focus on the highs and lows of supply drops while we talk about the evolution of supply drops, basically how they've changed over the years when they were first introduced to Advanced Warfare back in 2014 and obviously up to today in Black Ops 4. So keep in mind that we're not necessarily going to be talking about microtransactions as a whole. We're going to kind of focus specifically on supply drops. And a quick reminder, if you do enjoy the video anyway, please remember to hit that like button. And I've recently found out that 90% of the people that watch my videos on a regular basis are not currently subscribed. So if you are one of the 90% who watch my content on a regular basis, please remember to hit that subscribe button with notifications on so you can find your way back to the channel. So obviously you can see from the gameplay we're going to be starting off with Advanced Warfare. And overall, Advanced Warfare's system was pretty straightforward and fair because they rewarded you supply drops for both your playtime as well as completing challenges. Your playtime counted for multiplayer, the Exo survival, as well as the campaign. So no matter how you decided to play the game, you're going to be earning those supply drops approximately every 45 minutes. And that covers the playtime, but when it comes to the challenges are mostly pretty easy. A lot of it was based around leveling up. So if you reach level 10, you'd get a supply drop. Level 20, supply drop. And that would encourage people to prestige because for every 10 levels, you're going to be getting an additional supply drop. And there was even a third way to get supply drops, and that was through purchasing COD points, which could be used to actually buy supply drops. The going rate was 200 COD points for one supply drop, or approximately $2. So just like the majority of the Call of Duties that we're going to be talking about within this video, they had 4 different levels or rarities for their loot within the actual supply drops. There was enlisted, which was the lowest, then it was professional, elite, and then legendary. And what you can expect to find within these loot crates or these supply drops are camos and different stat changing variants. Those were the main things that people were after. Then you had things called reinforcements, which gave you double XP and then allowed you to get supply drops at an accelerated rate. And the last thing you would get is character gear. So that'd be eyewear, hats, shoes, kneecaps. And if you didn't like any of that stuff, you could just trash it and get additional experience, which is pretty nice because there's plenty of common stuff that you'll probably never touch. You just trash it for a low amount of experience, or even the higher tier items, you just trash them because you're not going to use them, and at least that way you can get some kind of use out of them. So that was it for the supply drop system. I mean, it was pretty straightforward, fair, but the biggest issue that people ran into was a system that a lot of people were starting to feel like it was pay to win. And what I'm really talking about is that stat changing variant part. Obviously the rest of the stuff is just cosmetic, so it's not really a big deal, but when you get into stat changing variants, some are more powerful than others just inherently, and some have way better variants than others. So if you're lucky enough to get one of the quote-unquote good variants or one of the better variants, puts you at an unfair advantage over the rest of your competition. So although I'm actually a fan of the supply drop system and the way it works, how simplistic it was, that you're able to trash the items you don't want, that pay to win system almost completely destroys the entire supply drop system for me in Advanced Warfare. So although Call of Duty Black Ops 3 is known for being one of the most popular Call of Duty titles ever made, in my opinion, it is also one of the worst supply drop systems we have seen or will ever see in Call of Duty. So within Black Ops 3, they actually decided to introduce 2 different types of supply drops, at least that you could earn on a regular basis. One was the common supply drop, but the other one was the rare. And at the same time, they went ahead and introduced an in-game currency known as crypto keys, which I'll refer to just as keys to keep it as simple as possible. So if you're looking to get one of those common drops, it would require 10 keys, and a rare drop would either require 30 keys or 200 COD points. Later on in the game's life cycle, they also offered triple plays, which could be earned with 100 wins or 2,500 COD points, or approximately $25. And unfortunately, all the success they probably saw from supply drops contributed to BO3's system being as greedy as it was. And what I mean by that is they started to add a ton of filler to the supply drops. And in my opinion, the vast majority of players want weapons, weapon camos, and character skins out of supply drops. But they started introducing other things like calling cards, taunts, gestures, variants for attachments, and in addition to that, they threw in DLC weapons on a regular basis, which was very nice, but with all the other filler, it made the DLC weapons incredibly hard to obtain. Along with all those changes, they went and adjusted the names for the rarity to the ones that we pretty much use today. They went ahead and had common, rare, legendary, epic, and on a rare occasion, they would have limited time items that were only available for a short period of time. If you missed out, you kind of snooze, you lose, and it's pretty much gone. And even though I'm not really a big fan of this supply drop system, I think overall the reason the game did so well is because it had that grind factor. You can go for that hero gear, you can unlock that dark matter, There's tons of other challenges in the game for you to complete. And on top of that, when you need to go for these triple plays, you got to get 100 wins. And even if you win 100% of the time, that means you have to play at least 100 matches so you can get some guaranteed dupe protected items, so you can actually have a chance at those DLC weapons. And that brings us to Infinite Warfare, which in my opinion had one of the best supply drop systems ever created, along with Modern Warfare Remastered. We're going to talk on both of those, but first I'm going to talk about Infinite Warfare, because that was the primary game, and then we'll transition to Modern Warfare Remastered, because their actual supply drop systems, although very similar, they're very different. So at first glance, Infinite Warfare's supply drop system looks very similar to Black Ops 3. They had common drops, which were 10 keys, rare drops, which were 30 keys or 200 COD points. And even though we still had the keys as an in-game currency, they went ahead and introduced salvage as another form of currency in-game. They still had those different rarities, the common, the rare, the legendary, the epic, so nothing has changed on that front. They also had the triple play type bundles known as hacks. You can actually get a prototype hack, which was 45 keys or 300 COD points, depending on how you want to spend your money. And you can get special variants that were dupe protected and stuff like that. They also had their own version of a triple play, which was 400 keys or 2,500 COD points. Pretty much the identical thing, but you would get 10 rare supply drops, along with a couple dupe protected items. And overall, you're probably thinking that sounds exactly like BO3's business model when it comes to the actual supply drop. For the most part, it is. But the biggest difference is this salvage currency that is available that allows you to gain access to pretty much a majority of the items you actually want. The other part is that they actually removed the DLC weapons from the supply drop system. So even though there's stat changing variants within the supply drops, you are able to gain access to all the DLC weapons in one of two ways. The first was to just be a season pass holder. Just own the game with the season pass. The new DLC weapons come out, you automatically get access to them. You can put them in your creative class. You don't need to do anything special. And if you didn't have a season pass, all you had to do was complete some remedial challenge like kill 50 people with a reflex sight on a pistol and you automatically get the next weapon, or whatever the case was. They're pretty remedial, very easy to do. Didn't take people very long, so you could purchase that game right now, gain access to all the DLC weapons just by buying the season pass or just grinding out a few challenges. So as a consumer, that feels good because they're not locking content behind a paywall. You don't have to hope that you get lucky. And even if you're especially unlucky, you're going to actually gain salvage over time, which could be used to get variants you actually want. And of course, there was a ton of filler in those supply drops, but at the end of the day, you got the items you actually wanted. You got a ton of camos, you got the weapons you wanted without having to worry and stress like, I'm never going to get those weapons. There's people that didn't get DLC weapons in Black Ops 3 8 months into the game's life cycle, which is pretty unfortunate. And thinking back to Infinite Warfare, I played the entire life cycle. The only item that a lot of people really wanted that was hard to come by, was really luck-based, but wasn't really a big deal, was the blue dot reticle. Besides that, I can't really think of another one. Go ahead and link down in the comments section if you think of another one that was more desirable than that blue dot in the supply drops. Next up is Modern Warfare Remastered. And they also went ahead and had that common drop for 10 keys and then the rare drop for 30 keys or 200 COD points. Same rarity, common, rare, legendary, epic. So pretty much the same across the board. And their big difference is you would get duplicates and you would end up with parts. That was their in-game currency instead of salvage. And then you'd use these parts to buy specific items or trade in for specific items to complete collections for items you actually wanted. Once you completed those collections, you would get the main item, which they called a bounty. You'd be awarded with that bounty for that specific item. That's kind of how it worked. Pretty straightforward, simple. One of the most straightforward systems there is, but it did require you to grind the game a lot. But at least you had a clear path from point A to point B. You knew exactly how long you needed to grind, how much salvage you needed to actually gain, or how many parts you needed to gain, so you could actually complete those collections to get the items you wanted. So overall, Modern Warfare Remastered had one of the best supply drop systems, but it was obviously on the minimalistic side. So we're almost in the final stretch. We're going to jump into World War II, which also had an amazing supply drop system, at least in my opinion. And it had a lot of the same stuff we've already talked about, the common drop, the rare drop. They went ahead and changed up the rarities a little bit. We went from common, rare, legendary, epic. Then they went ahead and introduced a brand new higher tier called heroic. So we're actually going to talk about two aspects of the supply drop system. One I'd like to see return in future Call of Duties or even in our current one, and the other aspect which is there to make Activision and the shareholders as much money as possible, and that is pretty much known as filler. We've kind of seen this expand over the years, and it was pretty bad in World War II, especially when we talk about pistol grips, but we'll go ahead and get to that. The thing that I really liked about the supply drop system from World War II is how many supply drops you can actually earn on a regular basis. I remember logging in for about an hour a day, being able to complete all of my challenges, my orders, and I end up with about 9 to 10 supply drops on a regular basis, pretty much every time I logged in. And since the earn rate was so high, I never really cared if I got duplicated. I just figured, hey, you know what? I'm getting more in-game currency known as armory credits, so I could actually get the items I want later down the road. On top of that, if you just hung out in the headquarters and watch other people open supply drops, you'd get supply drops of your own. You get additional XP, you get social score, another bonus thing that they kind of threw at us. But overall, you would get supply drops from just watching other people open supply drops in the headquarters. So if you left your character AFK, you could come back and maybe have 5 or 10 additional supply drops in addition to the 10 you earned. So you could easily be earning 15 to 20 supply drops a day if you just put in an hour or two every single day. Obviously that's a lot for a casual player, and there's not really many supply drop systems out there that can actually compete with that earn rate. Now let's go ahead and get into the big issue, which is the filler. And the biggest issue in the beginning of the game was so many of the taunts were identical to the other taunts. The pistol grips, no one really used them. You'd have over 250 of them, but you can only use one at a time, so what the heck's the point? And somebody got the bright idea to put a gold trim around the calling cards to make those a little bit higher tier, increase the rarity, and just dilute the supply drop system. But towards the end of the life cycle, they were definitely listening to the community. I think we were going in the right direction when it comes to supply drops. It felt very favorable. You were pretty much able to get all the DLC weapons you want, but it really came down to how well you could actually save supply drops. If you just opened them right away, you're going to have a tougher shot at getting those DLC weapons the day they came out. So not quite as good as Infinite Warfare, where you automatically got it as a season pass holder, or you were able to do some remedial challenge, but you were able to gain access to these DLC weapons if you just grinded out the daily contracts and orders. So overall, I think if they combined World War II with Infinite Warfare, I think we'd have probably one of the best systems. You get that high earn rate, and then you get all the items you want because they take care of the DLC on the front end instead of the back end, where you're kind of grinding out stuff to hopefully gain access to that content the way we did in Black Ops 3. And then obviously the way we're going to talk about when it comes to Black Ops 4. So in case you're not up to date, they went ahead and overhauled the entire Black Ops 4 loot system for the worse. And you've probably seen a few rant videos, rant tweets, rants all over Reddit, people just complaining about this brand new loot system. I'm kind of going to explain why, because in my opinion, it is 100% justified to complain about this brand new loot system because it is not consumer friendly in any way. And I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm going to call it the worst supply drop system we have ever seen in Call of Duty. So in our first operation, we had from tier 1 all the way to tier 200, and about 140 of the items were what are called reserves. And these are kind of blind supply drops where only one item is pulled at a time, and it's completely random, and you get good odds of getting duplicates, especially the more items you accumulate. And probably only about 8 to 10 items you actually want out of the 550 items available in reserves. As part of that first operation, when you went above tier 200, you would just only unlock reserves so you can get closer and closer to that 550 items or so. With the second operation, they changed it up a bit. They made it so we knew every item in the first 100 tiers. You would start accumulating reserves from tier 101 as high as you could actually go and complete the entire supply drop or tier system. On top of that, they also introduced a daily tier skip, so if you completed a specific challenge in multiplayer, zombies, or blackout, whichever one you normally play, you get that tier skip. So as we transition to our third operation, they went ahead and overhauled it again, and they really stuck it to the consumer. And some have even joked that it's called Grand Heist because they're just trying to find new ways to take our money. So in case you didn't know, now when you reach tier 101 and continue to go above tier 101, you get nothing. There's nothing you gain. You don't get any more tier skips. They're irrelevant. They don't really help you in any meaningful way. You just go ahead and play on a daily basis and you gain nothing. So you get all the items from tier 1 to 100, but once you hit tier 101, you gain nothing. And along with this new system, they introduced a brand new crate type system where every 2 hours of gameplay or so, you unlock one crate. So pretty much it's going to take you twice as long to earn one reserve. So after you've gone ahead and grinded those 2 hours and opened that reserve crate, you're going to notice that it's only one item. It's not dupe protected in any way. You invested all this time and odds are you're going to get a duplicate. So unless you're incredibly lucky, there is zero reward factor for actually opening those crates. They completely tossed away the concept of having common and rare drops that you can actually unlock through keys or 200 COD points. They still left the rare, but there's no way to earn them other than 200 COD points. You open those and they work very much like a supply drop, completely random, 3 items, luck of the draw, all reserves, basically like you got 3 reserve crates, kind of worth 6 hours of gameplay, which before you'd never have to play 6 hours to get 1 rare drop. And on top of all that, it's not disappointing enough. If you're a brand new player, you buy the game today, you do not have access to about 3 or 4 of the DLC weapons that have already been released because they were time gated. You're not going to get access to those. There's some that you may get access to, there's some variants you may get access to, but there's so much content locked behind even a paywall. You can't even pay to get those items anymore. You just missed out. Hopefully they'll bring them back in the future. Good luck, no notice, and it's kind of unfair as a consumer because you're going into this hoping that you're going to get access to all the type of content you want and that you're paying for. Black Ops Pass is basically useless. We get 4 maps so far, and that's really nothing in an outfit, a couple outfits. That's all you're paying for with this drop. I know this part's a little bit ranty, but this is kind of an annoying system. I've seen where we've been, I've seen what we went through. We gave all of our feedback over the years, and this is a supply drop system we end with. And personally, there's no way for me to wrap my head around how these decisions make sense, because at the end of the day, they are not consumer friendly in any way, and they are the worst supply drop system, or up there as the worst supply drop system we've ever had in Call of Duty. So regardless if you agree or disagree, hopefully you did enjoy the video or found some information helpful. If you did, please remember to hit that like button. If you are brand new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button with notifications on so you can find your way back. If you appreciate all the support, thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.